I'm in my 40s, going through a divorce.
This is some bull. All that marriage counseling for nothing. My life.
I'm an ex-military aviation technician, a career I pissed away being a drunk.
Yes, sir. Reporting for duty, sir.
This is obviously an exaggeration, but you get the point.
I battled alcoholism for more than half my life.
Alcoholism's like this. You either get locked up, covered up, or you sober up.
I have an electronic engineering diploma, which doesn't seem to be getting me anywhere.
A piece of paper that tells the world I'm smart? Give me a break.
Cost of living keeps climbing. Housing is totally out of reach.
Where am I going to get $579,000 to buy a two-bedroom home? Something's seriously wrong with this picture.
Groceries cost a fortune.
So this, ladies and gentlemen, is everything that I bought for $100.
I worked hard, followed the rules. I did what I thought I was supposed to do, and yet my life has come to this.
Bullshit.
I'm tired of being a loser. Welcome to the midlife crisis.
Why does it feel like your money disappears faster today than it does 5 years ago? It's not just the economy. It's the psychology of navigating a high-cost world. This is a complete breakdown of how rising living costs change human behavior and how you could fight back without losing your mind.
9 in 10 Americans and Canadians believe the country is experiencing a full-blown cost of living crisis. 70% say their area simply isn't affordable for the average family. And here's the thing, they're right. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, housing costs have climbed over 14% in just 2 years. The Consumer Price Index shows coffee jumped nearly 19%, beef shot up 15%, and transportation costs surged to 35% since 2020. These aren't abstract numbers on a government spreadsheet. They're the reason your grocery cart looks half empty at the same price, the reason your rent devours your paycheck before you've had breakfast, and the reason 83% of Americans and Canadians now report financial stress as a defining feature of their daily lives. What's truly fascinating isn't the inflation itself, it's what inflation does to your brain through behavioral finance mechanisms. Let's start with dopamine. Dr. Wolfman Schultz research established that dopamine responses represent the crucial mechanism underlying basic error-driven learning for reward. When you make a purchase, your brain releases dopamine. It feels good, and it encourages you to do the same. This is hardwired. It kept our ancestors alive. But in the modern economy designed to exploit that wiring, it becomes a trap. Research from the Stanford Social Neuroscience Lab shows that impulse financial decisions activate the same neural circuits as other reward-seeking behaviors. During non-emotion spending moments, your prefrontal cortex, the rational planning part of your brain, shows measurably reduced activity. You're not thinking, you're reacting. This is what Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman identified as loss aversion. The psychological pain of spending feels twice as intense as the pleasure of gaining the same amount. Modern payment systems have made reacting easier than ever. Researchers Naeem Faraz and Amnin Anjum at the University of Shanghai for Science and Technology developed a concept called spendception. It describes the reduced psychological resistance to spending when using digital payment methods compared to cash. When you tap a card or click a button, the visibility of the transaction diminishes. The pain of paying, which is a real neurological event, gets muted. The money doesn't feel real. Nearly 70% of Americans admit to making spontaneous purchases they later regret. That's not a character flaw. That's a system designed to bypass your defenses. Now, layer financial anxiety on top of that neurochemistry. 70% of Americans are wrestling with financial anxiety. 79% say personal financial uncertainty contributes to feeling depressed, and over half feel stressed or anxious about their finances 3 or more days per week. Social work professor Jeffrey Anvery Clark explains that these aren't just bad moods, they're money disorders. Unhealthy financial narratives like constant worrying that deepen mental health struggles regardless of actual income levels. Here's a striking finding from the research. The way people feel about their financial situation matters 20 times more than their actual bank balance. Perception drives behavior far more than reality. When people feel financially threatened, something interesting happens. They shop. Retail therapy isn't just a cultural joke. It's scientifically validated. The mechanism isn't about acquiring objects. It's about making purchase decisions that restore a sense of personal control during stressful situations. Choosing to buy something, even something small, genuinely reduces sadness by giving people agency over their circumstances. This demonstrates what behavioral economists call hedonic adaptation. We quickly return to baseline happiness levels during the cycle to repeat. During and after the pandemic, online shopping skyrocketed as people used retail therapy to cope with isolation and uncertainty. The need to feel in control during crisis drove spending even as incomes stagnated.
This is the paradox of the cost of living crisis. The stress of not having enough money makes people
spend more money.
Corporations know this. Let's talk about shrinkflation. In July 2025, the Government Accountability Office released a report to Congress on the practice. Here's what's happening. Chip manufacturers reduced standard bag sizes from 10 ounces to 9.5 while keeping the price at $4.99. Chocolate bars shrank from 1.5 ounces to 1.48. Cookie packages dropped from 15 ounces to 13.7. The average milk chocolate bar went from 100 grams to 90, and the price jumped from €1.35 to €1.99. That's a 60% price increase disguised as the same product. This exploits what behavioral economists call anchoring bias. Consumers anchor to the familiar price point while missing the quantity reduction. 71% of Americans and Canadians have noticed shrinkflation. Among those who noticed, 82% felt deceived. As one industry researcher put it, shrinkflation often arises from a brand's assumption that consumers are more resistant to visible price increases than to subtle reductions in quantity. That assumption is proving wrong. 66% of consumers have stopped buying products they perceived as shrinkflated. As Chandramuli Nilakantan, CEO of TRA Research, stated, shrinkflation tests the psychological foundation of loyalty. Meanwhile, the debt numbers tell their own story. American and Canadian credit card debt hit $1.27 trillion in the fourth quarter of 2025, the highest balance since tracking began in 1999. That's a 63% increase in just 5 years. The average household carries over $9,000 in credit card debt at nearly 23% interest. And here's what matters most. 73% of the debt isn't from luxury purchases or big splurges. It's essential costs, car repairs, medical bills, home maintenance, groceries. People are just trying to get by. As Matt Schultz, chief credit analyst at LendingTree, put it, so many Americans and Canadians are a job loss, income reduction, or medical emergency away from real financial trouble. The housing crisis amplifies everything. More than half of all renter households, 23.2 million of them, are now burdened by housing costs. A record 27% spend more than half their income on rent alone. The 2025 housing wage, the hourly rate needed to afford a modest two-bedroom apartment, is $33.63. That's more than 4 times the federal minimum wage. The country faces a short of 7.2 million rental homes affordable to extremely low-income renters. Many families now rely on SNAP benefits just to maintain basic nutrition, while housing costs consume their paychecks. As Renee Willis, president of the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, said, housing is more than just shelter. It is foundation to well-being and dignity. So what are people actually doing? They're adapting. Nearly a third have dipped into savings. 29% have reduced their saving rate. 28% are leaning harder on credit cards. Roughly 3 in 10 voters delayed or skipped medical care due to cost. Nearly 2/3 switched to cheaper groceries or bought less food altogether. Gen Z cut overall spending by 13% between January and April 2025. Private label store brands hit $282.8 billion in sales in 2025 as consumers traded down from name brands. Some have embraced extreme frugal living tips, meal prepping aggressively, cutting subscriptions, negotiating every bill, finding ways to stretch each dollar as far as it will go. But here's what the behavioral science tells us about lasting change. Researcher Wendy Wood at USC has consistently shown that environmental redesign produces more durable behavior change than motivation or intention alone. Willpower fades, but systems endure. Behavioral economist Shlomo Bernatizzi, who co-developed the Save More Tomorrow program with Nobel laureate Richard Taylor, documents that visual progress towards a savings goal activates reward circuitry in ways similar to consumption. Your brain can get the same dopamine hit from watching a savings bar grow as it does from clicking buy now. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell acknowledged the depth of this crisis when he said, "We are going to need to have some years where real compensation is higher for people to start feeling good about the affordability issue." That's not a promise. That's an admission that this won't resolve quickly. The psychology of spending in a high cost of living era isn't about discipline or weakness. It's about a human brain evolved for scarcity, navigating a system engineered for consumption. Understanding that is the first real step towards taking back control. Not through guilt, not through deprivation, but through awareness of the invisible forces shaping every financial decision you make.